And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who come in late, we are now having a little cooking session right here on the scene, putting the pot on in here. And we like for you to join in with us and have a ball.
Hi, this is Dara, and I want to welcome you to my video on stories. So this is going to be my Jira replacement. If we were using Jira, we could just jump in, get started, putting our tickets in and moving them through the system as we work. In Notion, I have to build the table that's going to manage my tickets. And so even though there's going to be this upfront work that I have to do, in the end, though, it's going to be better. So that's the thing you have to get into your mind as you work with Notion, that you're creating, you're building the applications. You're not just taking somebody else's application. You're building what you need. And so having this here in Notion, my goal is to create some things that I can't do with Jira. So number one, if you've been watching along, you've seen that I've created a team utilization table. I've created persona scenarios. I've created meeting notes and retrospectives. I'm going to be able to link that stuff into the universe of my tickets. The other thing, though, is I'm going to be able to create different views of my tickets that I can't create in Jira. So for instance, a view for road mapping, for planning out what we're going to work on when. So that's going to be really excited. So let's just jump in. This is going to be a longer shoot. It's actually probably going to be multiple videos to get through, because the setup will take me a minute or so to get through. So let's go ahead and add our table. Now, if you were to examine Jira, you would see that they're actually putting everything in the same table. Most of the time, what we're viewing is that we have our, if we're looking at the backlog view, our epics live, somewhere in a list over here, and our stories live in a list coming down here, and they look like they're separate things. Or we're looking at the board view, in which case we're getting the columns, and they look like they're kind of separate entities, but they all live in the same table. And they all have the same properties, but certain properties are used for certain tickets and not for others. And then they have this parent-child relationship. That's what really makes it work, so that the epics and the stories and the task, etc., can talk to each other. So for this, that's what we're gonna emulate, that kind of table structure, and then we're gonna create the views that we need. So let's go ahead, and first I want to make this, as usual, full page. In full disclosure, I had created this video, or started creating this video, a while ago, but then we had this awesome Notion update that added table templates, and table templates really just improved the way that I'm going to build this application. Before, I had some really hacky ways of trying to create the differences between what was my story, what was my epic, etc. And now I can use templates to do that, because what's really important is that I be able to get this table living inside that ticket. So if you were to go into Jira and you go into the epic ticket, you'll be able to see all of the stories that live below it. And if you went into the story ticket, you'd be able to see all the subtasks, or all the tasks that live under that story ticket. And I want to emulate that functionality, so that when I'm in that universe of that ticket, I know everything about it. So the templates are really going to help me with doing that. So let's create one. Now we're going to create the epics template. Okay. And in here, I'm going to put some instructions, which are just to make sure to filter by the name of this ticket. And then I'm going to put the database in here. All right. One thing I'm going to go ahead and do, oh, I haven't created my properties. So before I do anything else with this table, let's jump in and do the properties. So the first property we're going to have is the type. I'm going to leave it in multi-select for a moment so I can get them all in here. So we've got our epics, stories, task, bugs, action items. So action items are the things that are coming out of those meeting tickets that we have. I'm going to change colors here. The only one that I went red is bugs. And I'm just going to use the default gray for those two. Okay. And then next we're going to have the status. So I don't use the status of a not started or to do because that's the same thing as no status. So we already, if you look in the column view, in the Kanban board view, that you're going to get a column that says no status. And so that's really the same thing as the, an inbox or a to do or a not started. So I just skip that one and I go straight to the next statuses that I need. All right, so I want to have a process in here where in the course of the sprint, we should be completing tickets, but then once they're completed, I want to do a cleanup action where we actually go through and close the tickets. And by closing the tickets, we're going to remove who the ticket was assigned to, so that way when we're doing utilization, we're not getting hours coming from tickets that are actually not in the current sprint. Okay, let's color code this a little bit. So let's make this one green, blue, red, brown, and gray. All right, the next property is going to be the parent. Now I'm going to use a text field for the parent. The reason I'm doing that, so I could just use join the current table. So I can join the stories table to itself and then use the stories table as the parent. So if I was in a child ticket, I can say, oh, this is related to this epic. But I have a level above the epic, which is the scenarios. And if you recall, we did the scenarios. They're here in their own table. And I want to link these to the epics because I'm going to say, oh, when we're talking about search, search came up because we had this epic where Celine was planning, her menu. This is actually search. So that title is wrong, even though all the rest of the content's right. That's title's wrong, so that's a fix. So Celine is searching for recipes, so this is where search is going to come in. And here Celine is planning her meal. This is where the meal plan, the recipe, and the shopping list page, come up as, activities. And so I want to link the epics, like if I'm doing the recipe page, I want to link that epic to this scenario. So for that reason, I'm going to keep the parent as a text field, and then I can just call in that page, like here's Celine plans her meals, and it's linked that way. And I'll still be able to filter on it and sort by it, all the same things I could have done if it was just in table, except that I'm doing it this way. All right, the next thing is the hours. So how long it takes to do this. Now, an epic is not going to have the hours, but remember these properties belong to all of our items, all of our tickets. So the hours would be placed on a task ticket. And I just do this as a quick way to identify like what parts of the process, what teams are connected to this particular effort. So my release has to be it has to be a drop down in order to filter on it. So there's the view where we're going to look at release, where you want to show our columns by release type. And so we're going to have this drop down option for release. So my release is going to be like my MVP, my first release, second release, and so on. Once we assign it to a sprint, you know what sprint that's assigned to. I'm making that a number. And then here we're going to put who it is assigned to, and we're going to use that relationship of that staff table that we created earlier. So, you could, like if I didn't have the staff table and I just had everybody working with me in Notion, I could use the property of the person, and then anybody who is in the system, I could use that. But remember, the reason we create that utilization table is so that we can assign the hours. So by having it, relate to this table, we can then pull the hours from here and see that as we're adding stuff to people's plate, how much time do they have left in the sprint to take on more work. So that's why we're doing it this way and not use, kind of the ecosystem of who is just in our Notion instance. Okay. So now that I have these, I want to show this in a board format. I'm going to delete the default view because what I found is that I'm not sure if this will happen on a template, but as you change the device you're looking at, the tables want to automatically go to their default view, regardless of how you've set up your views. And here we always want to look at it in in the board view. So I'm just going to make that the only view that's available. If I was creating this as a table from scratch, I could have just created it as a board and we'd be done. But because it's a linked table, even if it was a board table I linked to, it automatically creates that table view as the default. I want this to be by status, and then I want to add a filter where the type is going to be stories. So when I come in here, I'm only going to see the children of this epic. So that's where this instruction comes in place, because I'm going to see the children, but I'm going to add a filter so I see not just all stories, but the stories that belong to this ticket. Okay. So that's pretty much what I need for my epics. Let's just duplicate that because stories are not going to be too different. Oops, I said edit. Let's say duplicate. And I just want to change this task type to story. I want to change the filter to task. Okay. And that's my 2 templates. So I could create more templates for other things. For my task tickets, I need to put in, acceptance criteria. Actually, let's do that. Let's create a task ticket real quick. Oops. I created a new instance instead of creating a new template. Yeah, because I'm doing it generic. I don't yet know. I could do like a task ticket for a development task, which would then have embedded like whatever the design and UX specifications or content specifications are. Or and then have one that's a different one, like for instance for design tickets we typically don't use acceptance criteria, we just need the requirements. So I could go in and create each of those types of things, but just for speed's sake I'm just going to do this basic task template and say, well, there's other things that we would need for the different types. All right, so real quick, let's add one stream of from scenario down to a task just to get that in here. All right, so let's open this in a new tab. Okay, so the the scenario we're gonna work on is this one, where Celine's planning her meals. And, we said that she's gonna come from the home page, she's gonna log in, she's gonna see her meal plan page. She's gonna have the option to search, find different recipes and replace them on her meal plan. Then she's gonna have this, she can push the meals to the shopping list, and then she can go to the store with a shopping list. If you didn't watch that video, so basically she can do all of this stuff in desktop or mobile, but the mobile showing here is just saying that this is on the go. This should be a completely mobile first experience. So don't take this to mean this is the only thing that's on mobile. It's just that she's not taking her, desktop or even her laptop, to Safeway or Kroger's or whatever grocery store is near you. All right, so we're going to work on this recipe page one, and we're going to tie it back to this scenario. So let's go ahead and go into our stories. I'm going to use the Epic template, and you see it automatically gives me the Epic, and it gives me that instruction in the table that we talked about. And for the parent, we want to say @Celine plans her meals, and make sure that it gets this underline thing here so that it is a link to that page. I've noticed sometimes when I put it in, it will take that content, but it won't necessarily create a page, and that creates conflict. When I'm working on other things like this, like filters, for instance. Okay, I'm not going to use hours on epics. I don't need to use labels because this is going to be everybody. When I do my release planning, I'll decide when this should be acted on. So let's go ahead and add parent is recipes. I don't want to do contains because I'm going to use that word recipe a lot and I'll get a lot of different results than what I want. So I want it to be, that it is that name, and it should be the only time I want my name. This is going to be what's different from Jira to Notion. So Notion doesn't have it doesn't have an ID field. I mean, I could have created a property ID number, but then it's manual, and I would have to manually number everything, and that's just a headache. So the title is actually the ID. So we want to make sure that as we're building our things out, that we are creating unique titles for all of our tickets. All right, now I could come back and do it over here, but I'm going to do it in this table because the nice thing is, since I've already created this filter that has stories and recipe as parent, it means if I create a new ticket here, it's automatically going to take on those properties. So let's put content recipes. Okay, so if I open this up, you'll see that it's already got the type stories and it's already got the parent of recipes. It's doing it though as like text, and I wanted to do it as the page. So I'm going to just add this so I can pull up. I might have to start over. Okay, let's add recipes. All right. So that's one little bug in the system, that it's not syncing it as the page. So Notion, folks, if you're watching, that's what I wanted. I wanted to connect to the page. I didn't just want the word recipes. This is going to be for the content and development teams. I'm going to use the stories template. I want to make sure that I use this as the what I'm filtering by. All right. And now let's go down one more level. So this is going to be so designing the specifications for the content. And it's a task template. So content requirement. Okay. And here, like you see, I don't really need that acceptance criteria, except they did it. That's acceptance criteria. All right, and I'm going to say that this is going to take about 6 hours to do. All right. Let's get back to my table. I have all these blanks. Let's delete these real quick. So if I go into my recipes now, I will see that, why is this not filtering? Parent is recipes. Oh, I do have to do contains. Contains recipes. There we go. And now that shows up. If I come in here, then interesting enough, that works, even though it says is. I'm not sure. That's where it's kind of inconsistent. It might be that this is text. It is text and not the thing. All right. All right, so now if I go back to that one, we'll see that it's blank. So it does have to say contains, and we want to make sure that that's pulling as the page and not pulling as just straight text. Because if we did it as text, we wouldn't have the link to just easily pop back. That's the whole reason. All right, let's add one new one here. Oops, I clicked too fast. All right. Oh, that's funny. I put itself in there. Let's take that out. At content recipes. Okay. So now you can see if we go, from the bottom to the top. So we've got, the link to the scenario. We can see the tickets that are assigned to the scenario. We can go into that story and see the tasks that are assigned to that story. So That's going to be it for this video. I'm going to go and I'm going to fill out some more stuff in here so we can actually work with the content that lives in the table and try out our different views and can, do stuff like assign task and that kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, it's complicated to build this thing, but once it's done, it is actually going to be better than Jira. So I will talk to you next time. Take care.